The war had already burned for 6 long years, and Captain Elias Rowan was tired in a way sleep could not fix. He stood among broken stone and twisted metal on the colony world of Vera 9, watching smoke crawl across the red sky. The evacuation sirens screamed without pause, and the ground shook with distant explosions. Humans were losing this sector. The enemy, the Varelian Dominion, had pushed hard and fast. They were taller than humans, armored by nature, and trained from birth for conquest. Their ships were silent and sharp, their soldiers precise and ruthless. To most humans, the Varelians were monsters. To Elias, they were just another reason his people were dying. "Captain, transports are lifting," a soldier shouted over the noise. "We've got 5 minutes before orbital fire." Elias nodded. "Get civilians on board, leave no one." He moved through the ruined streets with his rifle ready, eyes scanning every shadow. Buildings lay open like broken ribs. The air smelled of ash and burned metal. Somewhere nearby, a child cried. Elias froze. He lifted a hand, signaling his squad to stop. "Did you hear that?" Another cry echoed, thin and sharp, filled with fear. "That came from the lower ruins," Elias said. "Stay alert." They moved carefully toward the sound. Beneath a collapsed structure, half buried under stone and shattered glass, Elias saw movement. He expected a trap, a wounded enemy soldier. Maybe, instead, he saw something small, a child, not human. The alien child was no taller than Elias's chest. Its skin shimmered faintly blue under the dust, and its large eyes reflected terror. One of its arms was bleeding, pinned by debris. It looked up at Elias and cried out again, not in words, but in pure fear. One of the soldiers cursed softly. "Captain, that's Varelian." "I can see that," Elias said. "Orders are clear," another soldier said. "Enemy combat zone. We pull back now." The ground trembled again. The sound of incoming fire rolled across the sky. Elias looked at the child. It was unarmed, trapped, alone. "It's just a kid," he said quietly. "Sir." "Orbital fire. In 3 minutes." Elias didn't answer right away. His mind flashed with images he tried to forget. Human children pulled from rubble, empty eyes staring at nothing, bodies too small for war. He had sworn once, long before he earned his rank, that if he could stop even one child from dying like that, he would. He lowered his rifle. "Help me lift this," he said. The soldiers stared at him. "Sir?" "I said help me lift this." Reluctantly, 2 soldiers moved forward. Together they pushed the debris aside. The child cried out in pain, then fear, then confusion. As Elias gently pulled it free, the child clutched at him, shaking. "It's okay," Elias said, though he knew the child couldn't understand his words. "I've got you." A sudden flash lit the sky. "Captain!" someone shouted. "They're firing early." The scream of descending energy tore through the air. Elias didn't think. He turned, wrapped his arms around the child, and threw himself down, his body covering it completely. The blast hit, heat roared over them. The ground exploded nearby, sending shockwaves through Elias's armor. Stone slammed into his back. Pain flared across his shoulders and legs. His armor screamed warnings in his ears, but he didn't move. He stayed curled around the child, taking the impact meant for it. For a moment, there was only noise and fire. Then, silence. Dust drifted down. Elias gasped for air, coughing. His body ached, but he was alive. Slowly, he looked down. The child was still breathing. Its wide eyes stared up at him, unblinking. Slowly, one small hand reached up and grabbed the front of his armor. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "You're okay," he whispered. Around them, the battlefield had gone strangely still. Elias lifted his head and froze. Varelian soldiers stood at the edge of the ruins, weapons raised. Dozens of them. Their armor gleamed dark and sharp, their eyes glowing faintly behind visors. Any one of them could kill him in seconds. Human soldiers raised their weapons too, forming a shaky line. No one fired. The Varelians did not advance. Instead, they stared. Their gaze was fixed not on Elias, but on the child in his arms. One of the Varelians stepped forward slowly, its weapon lowered. Then another did the same. One by one, weapons fell to the ground. A deep, resonant sound passed through the alien ranks, not a roar, not a cry, but something like a breath held for centuries, and finally released. Elias felt the child press closer to him. "What's happening?" a human soldier whispered. Elias didn't know. High above, cameras drifted silently. Battlefield drones, human and alien, captured everything. The image of a human soldier shielding an alien child spread through fleets and command centers in seconds. On the Varelian flagship far above the planet, Queen Shathira watched the feed in absolute silence. The child in Elias's arms was her daughter, her last living heir. Around the queen, her advisors waited for rage, for an order to burn the planet clean. Instead, the queen rose slowly from her throne. Her voice carried across the bridge, calm and cold. "Cease all fire." The order echoed through the fleet. On the ground, Elias felt it before he understood it. The distant thunder of war faded. The sky grew quiet. A Varelian officer approached him carefully, hands empty. It stopped a few steps away and knelt. Kneeling was something Varelians never did before enemies. Elias stood frozen, heart pounding. "I think," one of his soldiers said softly, "you just did something very big, sir." Elias looked down at the child again. He hadn't meant to change a war. He had only meant to save a life. High above, the queen of the Varelian dominion stared at the human who had placed his own body between her child and death. And for the first time since the war began, she did not see an enemy. She saw a shield. The war did not end that day, but it stopped, and the galaxy took its first breath in 6 years. Because one human chose compassion over fear. After the battlefield went silent, Varelian soldiers moved in carefully, surrounding him and the child. Human troops stood tense behind him, fingers tight on triggers, waiting for the moment everything exploded into blood and fire again. But it did not. The Varelians did not raise their weapons. They did not shout. They moved with slow, careful steps, as if afraid of breaking something fragile. An officer stepped forward. Taller than Elias, broad-shouldered, its armor marked with silver lines. It spoke in a deep, vibrating tone that Elias could not understand. Then it lowered its head slightly, a sign of respect. Elias felt the child shift in his arms. The small alien clung to him, fingers tight against his armor plate. He could feel its heart racing. "It's okay," Elias said softly. "I won't let go." The officer gestured behind itself. A transport waited, dark and smooth, humming softly. Elias understood enough. They wanted the child. Slowly, carefully, Elias stood. Pain shot through his back, but he ignored it. He adjusted his grip so the child was supported and visible. "I'll come with her," he said firmly. The officer tilted its head, studying him. After a long moment, it made a short motion with one hand. Agreement. Human soldiers protested at once. "Captain, no. That's an order," Elias said without looking back. "Stand down." He stepped forward, carrying the child toward the alien transport. The ramp lowered. Inside, the light was dim and calm. Nothing like a warship. The air smelled clean. As Elias crossed the threshold, the ramp closed behind him. For the first time in years, the sounds of battle were gone. The journey upward was smooth. Elias stayed seated, the child still in his arms. Med drones hovered near, scanning him and the child. One gently treated the child's injured arm. The child flinched, then relaxed when Elias placed a steady hand over it. Minutes passed in silence. Elias's thoughts raced. He knew enough about the Varelians to understand how strange this was. They did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. And yet, he was alive. The transport docked. Doors opened to a wide corridor made of dark metal and soft blue light. Varelian guards waited. Unarmed, unarmed, Elias was guided forward. He noticed symbols carved into the walls, old, worn by time. This place was ancient. They stopped before tall doors that opened without a sound. Inside was a vast chamber. At its center stood a raised platform, and upon it sat Queen Shathira of the Varelian Dominion. She was larger than any Varelian Elias had seen. Her presence filled the room. Her eyes, bright and sharp, fixed instantly on the child. The guards stepped aside. Elias moved forward alone. The queen descended from her throne and crossed the chamber with slow, powerful steps. When she reached them, she knelt, a queen kneeling. Elias's breath caught. The child reached out instinctively toward the queen. Shathira took her daughter gently, pressing her forehead against the child's in a gesture Elias did not understand but felt was deeply important. Then the queen looked at him. Her gaze was heavy, searching, ancient. A translator activated. "Human," she said, her voice calm but full of weight. "Why did you shield my child?" Elias swallowed. He stood straight, despite the pain. "Because she was scared," he said simply. "Because she was a child." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "You knew what she was." "I knew she wasn't a soldier," Elias replied. That was enough. Silence filled the chamber. Around them, Varelian nobles and commanders watched without moving. This moment would be remembered for generations. The queen spoke again. "Among my people, to shield another with one's own body is a sacred act. It is not done lightly. It binds blood to blood." Elias frowned slightly. "I wasn't trying to make a statement." "I know," the queen said. She turned to the court. "This human did not act for honor. He did not act for reward. He acted because he chose to protect the helpless." A low murmur spread through the room. "That," the queen continued, "is the oldest strength." She faced Elias once more. "You are not a prisoner." That surprised him more than anything else so far. "You are a shield bound," she said. "By our law, you are under my protection. Harm to you is harm to my house." Elias felt the weight of her words settle over him. "What does that mean for the war?" he asked carefully. The queen's expression hardened. "The war continues." Elias nodded. He had expected no less. "But," she added, "it will not continue as before." News spread fast. Across human fleets, commanders stared at feeds showing Elias standing beside the Varelian queen. Some called it a trick. Others called it a miracle. On the streets of Earth and distant colonies, people watched the same image again and again. A human protecting an alien child. An alien queen kneeling. For the first time, the war had a crack. Elias was given a small chamber aboard the flagship. Clean, quiet, guarded, but not confined. He was treated for his injuries by Varelian medics, who worked with careful precision. Hours later, he was summoned again. This time, the queen's daughter was present, sitting beside her mother, watching Elias with curious eyes. "She remembers you," the queen said. "That is rare." Elias offered a small smile. The child mimicked it. The queen studied this, then spoke. "There are those among my people who will see you as a weakness. I'm used to that," Elias said. Her lips curved slightly. "Good." She raised her voice. "Let all hear this. The shield-bound will remain by my side. He will observe. He will speak. And he will live." The court bowed. Elias realized then that he had not been spared. He had been placed at the center of something dangerous. That night, as the flagship moved away from the battlefield, Elias stood at a viewport, staring at the stars. The child approached quietly, stopping a few steps away. She held out a small object, smooth, metallic, warm to the touch. A token. Elias accepted it carefully. "Thank you," he said softly. The child made a sound that might have been a laugh. Behind them, unseen forces shifted. Old hatreds cracked. New paths began to form. Elias Rowan had stepped into enemy hands expecting death. Instead, he had been claimed by an alien queen, and the war would never be the same again. The halls were wide and clean, lit by soft blue light that never flickered. Guards stood at respectful distances. No chains, no locked doors, and yet Elias knew he was being watched all the time. He was not a prisoner. He was something more dangerous. A symbol. Elias spent his days observing, as the Queen ordered. He watched how the Varelians trained, how they spoke, how they argued. They valued strength above all things, but not the loud kind. Strength to them meant control, endurance, obedience to tradition, and tradition said humans were enemies. Many Varelians accepted the Queen's word without question. But not all. Elias could feel the tension growing, like pressure under stone. The Queen's daughter, the young heir, often stayed near Elias. She followed him through gardens grown inside the ship, watched him eat unfamiliar Varelian food, and sometimes simply sat beside him in silence. She trusted him. That trust made Elias uneasy, because trust could be used as a weapon. One cycle later, the first attempt came. Elias was walking with the child through a quiet observation chamber when the lights dimmed slightly. The ship did not slow, did not change course, but Elias felt it. Years of combat had sharpened his instincts. Something was wrong. He stopped. The child looked up at him, confused. Elias turned slowly. The guards at the chamber entrance were gone. Too quiet. He moved the child behind him just as the wall panel slid open. 3 Varelians stepped out. They wore no royal markings. Their armor was dark, stripped of insignia. Their weapons were active, traitors. Elias did not hesitate. He pushed the child toward a side passage and stepped forward, hands open. "You don't want to do this," he said calmly. One of the Varelians spoke. "You should not exist, human. You weaken the Queen." "I'm not here to replace her," Elias replied. "I'm here because she chose mercy. Mercy ends empires," another said. They raised their weapons. Elias moved. He grabbed a loose service tool from the wall and hurled it, striking the first attacker's visor. At the same time, he lunged forward, closing distance before they could fire cleanly. Human soldiers were trained for chaos. Varelians were trained for order. That difference mattered. Elias slammed into the second attacker, using his weight and momentum. The third fired but missed, the shot burning into the ceiling as Elias kicked the weapon away. Alarms finally sounded. Guards flooded the corridor. The traitors were subdued within moments. The child stood frozen in the passage, unharmed. Elias knelt quickly, checking her over. No injuries, only fear. "It's okay," he said softly. "I've got you." She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. The guards watched this in stunned silence. The Queen's response was swift and absolute. The traitors were brought before the court. Their goal was revealed. They had planned to remove the heir, then blame the human. Civil war would have followed. They had underestimated one thing. The human did not think like them. The Queen stood before the assembled dominion, her daughter at her side, Elias one step behind. "This human," she said, her voice cold and clear, "has now shielded my child twice." The room was silent. "He has shown loyalty without blood, strength without cruelty, and courage without command." She turned. "Kneel." Elias froze. "My queen, kneel," she repeated. Slowly, Elias did. The Queen placed a hand upon his shoulder. "By ancient law," she declared, "I name Elias Rowan shield-bearer of the royal line." A gasp rippled through the court. "This title has not been given in over 1,000 cycles," she continued. "He speaks with my authority when the heir is threatened. He stands between her and all harm." The nobles bowed, some reluctantly, some in awe. Elias felt the weight of it settle on him. This was no honor meant for comfort. This was responsibility sharpened into a blade. News of the attempted coup reached human space quickly. This time, the footage was different. It showed Elias standing firm against alien traitors. It showed Varelian guards protecting him afterward. It showed the Queen placing her hand on a human's shoulder. Human commanders argued. Politicians shouted. Analysts rewrote everything they thought they knew. The war had not ended, but the rules were breaking. In the days that followed, Elias was invited into strategy chambers. At first, he listened. Then he spoke, not with demands, not with threats, with questions. "Why do you attack this colony?" he asked once. A commander answered, Because it produces resources. And if those resources were shared? Elias asked. Without war? The room went quiet. Varelians did not think in those terms, but they listened. Elias explained human logistics, human resilience, human stubborn refusal to break. He did not brag. He simply stated facts. Humans don't stop fighting when they lose, he said. We stop fighting when there's something better to protect. The Queen watched him closely. Another threat came, this time external. A rogue human fleet, refusing to accept any peace, attacked a Varelian supply line. The risk of full escalation returned overnight. Elias was summoned. He stood between holograms of human and alien ships, fire frozen in light. If we answer this with force, the Queen said, the war burns hotter. If we don't, Elias replied, both sides lose control of the story. He took a breath. Let me go, he said. The room stilled. Send me with a joint task group, human and Varelian. We stop the rogue fleet together. That has never been done, a commander said. Neither has this, Elias replied quietly, gesturing to himself. The Queen considered, then she nodded once. Prepare the task group. The joint mission was tense. Human pilots flew beside Varelian ships, weapons powered down but ready. Mistrust filled every channel. Elias stood on the command deck, visible to all. When the rogue fleet was intercepted, Elias spoke first. This is Captain Elias Rowan, he said. Stand down. You're about to start a war no one survives. Some ships hesitated, others powered weapons. Before firing could begin, Varelian ships moved not to attack, but to shield human vessels from return fire. The message was clear. This was not a trap. The rogue fleet stood down. Across the stars, something shifted. When Elias returned, the Queen met him in private. You are changing my people, she said. I'm just showing them another way, Elias replied. She studied him for a long moment. My enemies grow fewer, she said. But louder. Elias nodded. Same for humans. The child entered then, running toward Elias without fear. The Queen watched that, and something ancient softened in her eyes. You are no longer only a shield, she said. You are a bridge. Elias understood then. He had not broken the Dominion. He had shown it a choice. And once a choice existed, the galaxy could never go back. The galaxy stood on the edge of silence. Not peace silence, the kind that comes before everything breaks. Elias Rowan felt it as he stood on the command platform between two fleets. Human ships floated on one side, Varelian war vessels on the other. Weapons were powered but locked. One mistake, one wrong order, and the war would roar back to life even worse than before. Behind Elias stood Queen Shathira and her daughter. The child held a small piece of Elias's uniform, as she always did when she was nervous. Across the void, human commanders argued in tight, angry voices. Across the channel, Varelian nobles demanded strength, not patience. Both sides were afraid, and fear was dangerous. The extremist attack came without warning. A hidden weapon platform fired from deep space, striking a neutral station where diplomats from both species were gathered. The explosion tore the station in half. Lives were lost, human and Varelian alike. The galaxy screamed. Human fleets powered weapons instantly. Varelian ships locked targeting systems. Old hatred surged like fire through dry grass. This is why we cannot trust them, a Varelian commander roared. They killed our people, a human admiral shouted back. Elias stepped forward before either side could give the final order. Stop, he said. His voice was calm, but it carried. No one fires, Elias continued. Not yet. You have no authority here, a human officer snapped. Queen Shathira raised her hand. He does, she said. Silence followed. Elias took a breath and spoke again. That attack did not come from either fleet, he said. It came from those who profit from war, from those who fear peace more than death. Holograms shifted. Data streams appeared, as Varelian analysts confirmed it. The enemy was real, and it was neither human nor Varelian. A joint operation was formed in minutes. Human and Varelian ships moved together for the first time, not side by side in tension but in purpose. Elias coordinated from the center, translating not just language, but intent. Human pilots favored speed and improvisation. Varelians favored discipline and formation. Together, they were unstoppable. The hidden platform was destroyed without mercy. When the final explosion faded, something strange happened. No cheers. No victory cries. Only quiet. Because everyone understood what almost happened. In the aftermath, the Queen called a full assembly. Every major leader of the Dominion attended. Human representatives joined via secure channels. The galaxy watched. Queen Shathira stood tall, her daughter beside her. "This war began because we saw only enemies," the Queen said. "It continued because we forgot what we were protecting." She turned to Elias. "This human shielded my child without knowing who she was. He saved her twice. He chose life over victory." The Queen raised her voice. "By ancient law, blood may be claimed, not only by birth, but by bond." A murmur swept the chamber. Elias felt his heart pound. "Elias Rowan," the Queen said. Slowly, he did. She placed her hands upon his shoulders. "I claim you as kin of my house," she declared. "Not as subject, not as tool, but as family." The chamber fell to its knees. Across the stars, humans watched in disbelief. A human, adopted by an alien queen. The war ended not with surrender but with agreement. Borders were redrawn. Trade opened. Joint patrols formed. Old battlefields became shared memorials. It was not easy. There were protests. There were attacks. There were those who refused to let go of hate. But something stronger held. A story. The story of a human who shielded a child. Time passed. Elias stayed with the Dominion longer than anyone expected. He trained joint peacekeepers. He advised both sides. He argued often with humans and Varelians alike. The Queen trusted him. Her daughter adored him. One day, as the child played in a garden grown under artificial stars, Elias sat beside the Queen. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Taking a human into your line?" The Queen watched her daughter laugh. "No," she said. She looked at him. "You reminded us of that." Years later, children, human and alien, learned about the war in history halls. They saw the image frozen in time. A human soldier, burned and bleeding, shielding an alien child with his own body. Teachers told them, this is when the war stopped being inevitable. Elias Rowan never became famous in the way heroes usually did. He did not rule. He did not conquer. He did not command armies. He stood between, and sometimes, that was enough. At the edge of the stars, a human walked beside an alien queen. A child ran ahead of them, laughing. The galaxy endured, because one human chose to be a shield, and in doing so, became family.